There's renewed attention on the shortage of volunteer firefighters, especially in more rural communities.
Volunteer firefighters rushed to that scene on Friday, and our Dylan Morello is hearing from local leaders who say this shortage needs to be addressed. Dylan.
Dave and Kelsey, News 4 spoke with David Olson this weekend, a volunteer firefighter from the Indian Falls Fire Department, one of the many first responders who saved lives after the tour bus crash. However, he worries that in a few years, help won't be this close. Olson adds that an aging population of volunteer firefighters in rural areas like Pembroke is a big concern. Reports show that the first people on scene Friday were 6 volunteers between the ages of 50 and 70 years old. Senator George Borrello, who represents Pembroke, tells me about 90% of the state's EMS calls are responded to by volunteers. Pair that with a 30% drop in volunteerism over the last years. It's a challenge, Borrello says, for these departments to recruit and retain, despite tax incentives and paid training already offered.
There are just many bills that have sat idle in the state legislature that would provide more incentives, additional tax credits. You know, there's a $200 tax credit that hasn't changed in almost 20 years. We have bills that would bump that up to, I believe, $800. There are other things, other tax breaks, including tax breaks for people that volunteer on their property taxes. All these things have languished in Albany.
Senator Borrello adds that many of his constituents say training is very challenging, often infrequent, and rural area volunteers have to drive hours and hours to get to the training. And coming up at 10 and 11 tonight, we are hearing from other lawmakers and volunteer departments taking a closer look at incentives being offered by the state to become a volunteer firefighter, asking if that is enough to maintain the force and what else can be done to help recruitment. In the newsroom, Dylan Morello, News 4.